Today's topic is one that I think most people can relate to because we all have either gone through challenges or are going through challenges now or will go through challenges in the future. It's just a part of life. You never know what someone is going through. So it's important to just be kind all the time.
I couldn't agree more with that statement. Um, and what a universal topic, I think, to kind of discuss not just the importance of being kind, but I think our responsibility to um, kind of help draw that out in others. So I know we have talked about kindness not just as a way of being, but as kind of an underpinning to everything we do. So we're not just responding to our perception of someone else, but we're actually putting it out there as the first step, regardless of whether or not we think that the person we've encountered is deserving of our kindness, shall we say.
Right. And I feel like I got that a lot when I was caring for Lance because I had so many things going on in my mind. And I was just constantly thinking, constantly processing things. And if I didn't make a conscious effort to look friendly, I didn't look friendly. And so I think that I got a lot of responses from people because of the way that I looked. And it wasn't that I was being unfriendly. It was that I was lost in thought in the stress of the life that I was living.
That's something I've encountered actually quite a bit, and not just with you, but other people out in the world. You see people and they have either a facial expression or their body language, or maybe even just the words that come out of their mouth don't seem very friendly. Maybe they're off putting, maybe they seem aggressive, maybe they seem rude. And I've found that if I react to that, it never ends up as a positive experience. It just kind of degrades from there. So I've tried to build a habit of responding with a smile, responding as if I don't notice that that person looks maybe grumpy or irritated or whatever. I just kind of pretend like I don't notice that and give that person, if they are being grumpy or having a bad attitude, it gives them an opportunity to kind of reset maybe and go, oh, she didn't notice that I was being rude. So now I'll be kind. Or if they just, have a face that, maybe is showcasing the stress in their life, um, then it gives them like an invitation to a more positive encounter.
And I think too that if you're responding to the way that somebody looks, that you are taking it personally right from the beginning. That just because somebody looks at you in a certain way doesn't mean that it has anything to do with you. So why start off with making it personal?
Agreed. I work in customer service, and um, I can't even begin to count the number of times I encounter someone who's very angry or upset and demanding, put out, whatever. And I just have to maintain um, a place that says, this isn't about me. They're not mad at me. I'm just the proxy for whatever they're mad at. So if I can deflect some of that and show them like, hey, I'm on your side, like I'm on your team here, and let's work through this problem together. But in not encountering people that were maybe like in your situation, they're dealing with a disability or some kind of hardship, and they've just encountered one obstacle after another, and they're just already expecting that their encounter with me is going to be an obstacle. Being able to kind of diffuse that with kindness has been so useful.
That was a big deal for me too. I always knew the people who had been around others who were in situations like mine because they were the kindest people. And it made such a difference.
I think it does. I mean, did you ever catch yourself um, coming into a scenario or a situation with an expectation that someone was going to give you a hard time or they were going to make it more challenging, and allow that to kind of dictate how you entered into that situation?
Did I ever? I don't know that I could count how many times I walked into a situation like that because I was always on the defense because of how I cared for Lance. And I felt like I always needed to be ready for the next fight.
I think when you encounter that so much, it's just your expectation. When you did catch yourself going into a situation ready to fight, did you ever then encounter someone who diffused that with kindness?
Oh, a lot. Yes. And I think that's actually, I had so many people in my life for a few years. It was several years before Lance passed away. And there were a lot of people who came into our life who were kind despite my instant defensiveness. So that helped me turn things around too. And it helped me really see how my reactions were making other people respond to me. And I was reacting based on previous experiences. I wasn't reacting to the situation right now. And I didn't really recognize that for a long time.
You've talked about how impactful it was to encounter people um, that were kind to you, maybe when they didn't have to be. Maybe they put in extra effort or just went above and beyond. And, I think we've all encountered those things in our lives. And if nothing else, they make us, I think, or at least for me, and I think for you, I'll let you answer, but they make me want to be better. So that kindness then draws out kindness in me towards someone else, and I can pass that along. So it's like this positive reinforcement. Did you have you found that when you encountered that, it heals a little part of you and makes you want to be a kinder person?
I have found that there's a ripple effect with it. And there are a couple of situations, specific people that I can think of. One while I was caring for Lance, and one after Lance passed away. One of the things that happened, one of the situations when Lance was still alive, this was about 10 years before he passed away. He had a series of grand mal seizures. And at the time, we had two vehicles. He hadn't been driving for a while. I was trying to get rid of one of those vehicles, and then we were going to keep our car. Well, because he had those seizures, then he needed a walker all the time. And then he needed a wheelchair for longer distances. And I realized then that we needed a van. So I traded in both of our vehicles, and the car dealership that we worked with helped so much. They were all so kind. I called them and I told them the situation. They told me what they had for inventory. They gave me prices over the phone for my vehicles, went and picked up one of them, had all of the paperwork ready for me. I went down there, was able to sign all the paperwork, trade in the vehicles, and walk away with that van in 1 hour. That's almost completely unheard of when you're buying a new vehicle, especially when you're trading in two vehicles. But they were so amazing and they helped me. Every single person in there was so kind. And that made me a repeat customer. And I've had people say, well, that's their job. Well, yes, that is the job of a salesman, but they went above and beyond. And I established a relationship with a different salesman, and he did the same thing to help me get our second van. And the year before Lance passed away, we knew that we were going to be putting him on hospice. So I contacted that same salesperson and I told him what was going on. And Lance was really not doing well. And I needed to know that I could still put the wheelchair in a vehicle if I needed to. So I contacted this salesperson and I told him what I was looking for and I gave him the dimensions of the wheelchair. And he said, you know what? Why don't I just drive this vehicle out for you to put the wheelchair in and see if it fits? And it was about a 25-mile drive. He came all the way out. We tried the wheelchair. It fit. I got Lance. We put him in the car. We took it for a test drive. I told the salesman what I wanted on the vehicle. He took it back to the dealership. He got all the paperwork ready. And this one took a little bit longer because the technology was different and I needed to learn all that new technology. But he did the same thing for me. And at a time when life was so incredibly stressful and I was getting rid of the van because I knew that we were putting Lance on hospice and it was just such a difficult time. The kindness of every single person in that dealership, in from the service department to the sales department to management, everyone was just amazing. And do you know, I have never allowed a sticker on the back of my car to advertise for a dealership until I went with that dealership and I said, go ahead and leave it on there. It is still on my car. I don't even live in that state anymore.
I love when you talk about that because I think it would be easy to dismiss it as customer service, but at the end of the day, that's beyond customer service, or maybe really that's what customer service is kindness. It is um, really addressing the need of whoever is in front of you with a sense of kindness and empathy, rather than just purely transactional, you know?
And, you know, it always made a difference when the people that I knew in my life were kind to me. And it makes a difference now when people are kind. But there's something about a stranger being kind that I don't know.
I think because when it's somebody that you have an investment in that relationship. So, as my friend, if I'm unkind to you, I risk that relationship and the reciprocity that that relationship provides. So, if I am kind, then that is me kind of extending faith that you will be kind back, right? Reciprocal um, action is kind of foundational to any kind of relationship. There's trust in that, and so you build that trust and that reciprocity, and that kindness kind of helps guide that or keep that moving. When it's a stranger, you've not established any sort of a relationship with them. So if you're rude to them, the chances that you're going to encounter that person ever again are pretty minimal, unless it's the person that at the gas station that you stop at every morning to get your coffee or whatever it is. So when it's a stranger, there's an extra sense of vulnerability. So there's a greater impact, I think. There's a greater impact. If I'm kind to someone for no reason, like it doesn't get me anything because I'm not in a relationship with that person.
Right. But it also says a lot about the person that you are. How you treat strangers tells me who you are as a person. And if you're not nice to strangers, then there's a pretty good chance that you're not a nice person. But if you are kind to strangers, there's a pretty good chance that you are a kind person.
When you're going through your life and you encounter a stranger, I think oftentimes you have an opportunity to extend a kindness or to walk away or move on. And I think that's why it's always so rewarding and fulfilling when you make that choice of kindness to hold a door for somebody. I mean, the very, very simplest acts, to help somebody with a load that they're carrying, or to just smile and say hello, ask them about their day. Whereas if you disregard that nudge to be kind or to extend that kindness, you feel a little empty when you leave that encounter, or at least that's how I perceive it.
And there's also a ripple effect from showing kindness too. And that's something that we talked about briefly. One of the things that happened after Lance passed away, this was not quite 3 years after he passed away. And I was at the airport getting ready to fly to Denver. And I had already traveled a few times. I had flown a few times to Denver. And I've talked in a previous episode about my first experience at the airport after not flying for 9 years and how nobody was talking to anybody anymore. And this time at the airport was the same. And I just figured, I guess this is the way it's going to be. Nobody's ever going to talk again. and, and I was standing in line, and this young man came up behind me and asked me a question. And I was just kind of shocked. But I was so excited because somebody was talking to me. And I turned around and I answered his question, and we struck up a conversation. And he ended up being in a different group. So he got on the plane before I did. And when I got on the plane, he was sitting kitty corner behind me. And he was very tall and didn't have enough room. His bag wouldn't fit in the overhead bin. And he was sitting there with his legs all scrunched up because he couldn't, he had to put his bag underneath the seat in front of him. And I told him, you know what? I've got short legs. I don't need that leg room in front of me. So what do you, if you want, I can take your bag and put it underneath the seat in front of me. And so I did that for him. And when we were getting off the plane, we walked off the plane together and just talked a little bit. And we have stayed in touch. His name is Keandre Hall. And like I said, he's just a kind young man. And I think one of the reasons that he stood out to me so much was because here he was talking to this old lady who's walking with him. And he was talking about the excitement of going to play football. And I could tell what a good person he was. And I told him, he's the kind of person that our young people need as a role model. And that's why I've continued to check on him. And he's actually working with young people now. And I just love to hear that because we all need a little bit of kindness in our life.
I love that.
Kindness just makes you feel better. It makes the person being kind feel better, and it makes the person receiving the kindness feel better.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody who encounters a loved one or a friend or somebody that's going through something challenging and maybe they feel prickly as you're trying to extend this kindness? Do you just kind of keep going? Do you just keep smiling? Like, how do you respond to that? What's a way that we can respond to somebody going through a challenging time that will make them feel valued and will ultimately be received as kindness?
I think just acknowledging that you see that they're struggling with something. Hey, it looks like, or it seems like maybe you're going through a really hard time right now. Is there anything I can do? Do you need to talk about it? I mean, don't offer something that you're not willing to give them. But if you're willing to sit and listen to them, or if you're willing to help them out in some other way, I think it's good to acknowledge it, because a big part of the problem that I had when I was caring for Lance was that I felt like I was just always expected to put on this happy face and just do everything that needed to be done. And I was so overwhelmed all the time. And just knowing that somebody saw what I was going through, just acknowledging it and offering to help. I didn't necessarily accept their offer of help, but it helped to know that somebody saw that I was struggling. And I think that that's a really important first step. But like I said, if you're not willing to help them or participate in their life beyond that conversation there, then I would say just leave it alone. To me, I kind of think of it as pay it forward. Um, People are kind to me. I'm going to be kind to the next person. And I hope that they're kind to the next person. And I think that in the kindness of strangers, especially, is so impactful. And I have had a lot of friendships grow out of the kindness of strangers. And one of those was you, Jenna. You didn't have to be kind to me, but you were.
Oh, I just had to get through your prickly exterior.
Well, hopefully, I'm beyond that prickly exterior now. Life has changed a lot, and I don't feel the need to be so defensive all the time. Well, thanks for joining me, Jenna, and I will see you next time.
All right, we'll see you. Bye.